It's like us.
Individual facility. It's us.
That's why I love it. It's like when you talk about something like metaphorical, but it's like it's us at the same time.
Absolutely. It is definitely 100% us, right? Like this is our opportunity to pull up that seat at the table and let our issues be known.
Yes, for sure. And I am UUP, so very proud of my union.
Yes. Great, strong union there.
You already know how we're coming with research to back up our claims. I just want to let my producer chime in and see if he has any reflections. I know it's really exciting to talk with you, and we kind of always have open dialogue, so just wondering if he wants to tap in. What do you think?
What district, what area is he in?
So I cover the entire Western New York region.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Very nice.
Yeah, we go from Erie County to Niagara County to Chautauqua, Cattaraugus, Allegheny. We have the entire region. I mean, geographically, it's probably about the size of Rhode Island.
All right.
But,
Now, how did you think – I heard Italia say first time, and you said first time for a lot of things. What did you do to get in? What you think was your motivation, your method? What got you in?
So what got me in, and I was privileged enough to have an opportunity at the young age of 19 to go to work for General Motors.
Oh, nice.
And it was actually, it was actually me getting fired. For a long story.
Good story.
19 years old. It's the middle of August. I was working on a furnace. Now, this furnace, when the doors open, is about 1,500 degrees.
Wait, you got fired from GM?
I got fired from GM.
I'm like, why is it?
This is a good story. Good story.
So it's a two-man operation, and we had gotten to the point where we were pretty good at getting this furnace unloaded, getting it reloaded, and beating the cycle time. In the middle of August, as you can imagine, a manufacturing facility gets pretty damn hot. Right. And, we're working overnight. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. We're exhausted.
Right.
And, in between cycles, we were sitting at our station and we dozed off. And,
wow.
As somebody who was on a probationary period, you're an at-will employee. And, my general foreman that morning at 7 o'clock in the morning when our shift was over pulled us into the office and told us that, not to report to work, that we were being terminated.
Wow.
Now, mind you, I had no other instances, right? No occurrences. I was never late, nothing like that. Like, my work was always good.
Right.
But simply because, we made a mistake. And it wasn't just us. There was a senior serviceman who, 20 plus years or something inside the facility who, his job was to watch the machine, right, to ensure that the machine operates smoothly. Right. Well, he had those off too. Again, it's hot. It's all, as you can believe in here. And so as you can imagine, as a 19-year-old kid, having to go home and tell your family, that I lost my job because I fell asleep is a bit traumatized.
Right.
As per the course, my union rep came in, as my right to have union representation in these meetings. And, he came in with such a calming voice. I still remember his name. His name was Brian Cornelius. Came in and he was so calming and like he saw like
he was nice.
I mean,
he was
okay. So
you talk about a traumatizing experience, like 19 years old and the job of your life. Like at that time, you could only get into General Motors through referrals. So here I'm like blowing a huge opportunity, and I mean he was just calm, cool, collective. He saw me, he saw how worked up I was, and did his best to try to calm that. And I remember before I drove home, so I worked out in Lockport, which is about a 40 to 45-minute drive from Lockport back to the west side. And by the time I got home, Brian had already called me and told me to report back to work that night. And I'm crying. I'm crying here, right? Like snot nose crying, ugly crying, all that other good stuff. And the reason why I was able to keep my job is because I had 91 days on the job. And
nice.
that union contract that afforded me the right to representation and protection against unjust termination.
Right.
So, and then give us some context about like who you were at that time. Were you a dad? Were you in school? Because I know that you're so humble, and that if you were falling asleep, like it's because you were working double or triple. So tell us a little bit about who you were at that time.
So I was a father. I had my son at the time, who I believe he was probably around like 6 or 7 years old at the time.
Okay, so he was like 6 or 7 years old?
Yeah, I
Okay.
worked overnight specifically because I wanted to make sure that I was there to take him to school in the morning. I was there to pick him up from school.
Right.
I would sit down with him. So my routine was I would leave the factory, go pick him up, get him ready from school, pick him up from his mother's house, get him ready for school, drop him off at school. Then I would go home and sleep.
Right.
But I would make sure I was up in time to pick him up from school, bring him to my house, feed him, go over his homework and all that stuff, spend some time with him. I would take him back to his mom's house, and then I would go home, take a nap, and then leave for work.
That
this
was a heavy studio.
Monday through Friday routine. Yeah,
that was
my Monday through Friday routine.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it was a lot.
Well, I think for me, like what the story is like part of it is how you were centering your life around being an active father, and like just like the idea of you having someone to fight for you, I think is really important because again, like those unions, like especially the one I'm in, they touch so many lives. So I'm just really excited to talk with you and for your advocacy, right? So seeing the Latino community all across the state, you have to represent all of the state's diverse members. How would you describe the average member that you represent, and or like what would you say is what excites you the most about your service?
And what I love the most about the average member is the beauty and diversity, right? We represent so much diversity. That it is amazing to see so many different issues. But the advocacy, the emotion, the passion that the members have, not just the principal office, but I'm talking about the rank and file members, right? Those who, are doing the due diligence, your teachers, your firefighters, your civil servants, those who are answering the call every day, the healthcare workers, right? They are completely passionate about the work they do. And for me, it is an honor of a lifetime to be able to represent them, to be able to represent the labor movement in Western New York.
I think one of my favorite, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, you're good.
One of my favorite things is to see you with your members. They absolutely love you. And it's like, Peter this, Peter that, where's Peter? I was like, I don't know. But they're excited because you bring that energy, I think, of like you said, like base building and like bringing this diversity. But I think it like is overall this passion of like, New Yorkers come to work. Like they physically, 100%. Spiritually, mentally dedicate themselves to whatever it is that they're a part of. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, but can you tell me what is like what's the thing that makes you most excited about being able to be a servant leader? As you are, which is basically your regular leadership style.
Absolutely. So, what excites me the most is seeing the future, seeing these young activists, not only within the labor movement, but within the community as well, get engaged, young activists like yourself, right, that are really grabbing the bull by the horns. I mean, listen, we know what it is to be a New Yorker. We have a different step, right? We dance to a different beat, but when you're a Buffalonian as well, when you're a Western New Yorker, there's a difference there, man. Like we have such passion not only for our work but for our community as well. So seeing the future, seeing the activism, seeing what's happening across the community, like this younger generation is not they're not just standing fast. They are.
Oh no, they're coming out
in all aspects. They are coming out, and good for them, right? Like it is required of me as a leader to create spaces for these people to flourish, right? Like this is what it's about. For me to drag you on the radio, you're like, no, it's okay. And I'm like, no, Peter, people want to hear your voice because I feel like you're such a servant leader. Like you want to push other people forward. And that's what it's about. I mean, listen, when I took over two and a half years ago, one of the things I ran on was the fact that, my intention is to create spaces for people to lead, for them to sharpen their skills. This is not about me. This is about we. Right? Like we are only as good as the next person up in line.
Okay.
So we have a due to go ahead.
Sorry. 2 more questions.
No, you're good.
Well, because I want to make sure I get all my questions out. How many thousands of members would you say, because I don't know if like there's a specific amount that you represent or that or that the union represents, you/the union?
Yeah, so we have about 140 affiliated unions, and those unions in turn represent about 140,000 union members across Western New York.
That's so cool. Shout out to my 140,000 union brothers and sisters. good Friday morning. Super proud of you, Mr. Dejesus. And then my second question was, what was your predecessor like? Like, what did he, I assume it's a he, but like, what did that person teach you that made you prepared for this role to represent 140,000? Is that larger than some like political districts, right?
At 100%. Yes, yes, it is. It is a lot. But so my predecessor was Richard Lipset, who was himself a Teamster.
Oh, big whip, let's go.
Yeah.
You already know.
And I owe so much to my predecessor. I worked under.
He got the magazine.
Yeah. So I worked under Dick for 4 years as the field coordinator for the L. So I saw firsthand what it takes to do this work, to hold the office of presidency. And one of the biggest things Dick did for me was, he gave me a space to speak my mind, to add my input. Right. He always asked, what my thoughts were, being that of at the time of the younger generation. Right.
Right.
He wanted to know what I thought on issues. Was not condescending about it in any way, shape, or form. Like, he valued my input. He created spaces for myself and other young leaders to engage, to be part of the Federation, to understand the work of the labor movement. And that's to me, that's what it's all about. So, I am proud to call him my mentor, but I'm honored to have him more as a friend.
Shout out to him. And I think one of the things that's really important that I want to center because of my political science background is the role of the unions in the progressive social justice movement. And I'm not going to use it in the past tense, but in building what we have right now, when I think about like the parades, and I know my story that my grandma marched with Martin Luther King, there were unions out there with her churches. And I think when it's like time to activate people or ask people questions, because I think my union brothers and sisters, like you said, they're genius. I think it's so cool that I have access to them. Do you know?
Absolutely.
Like we eat over here at Buffalo State. So if you're UUP and you're coming to the meetings, there's going to be some food there. And we have like this,
Absolutely.
Pre-COVID, we had this like dinner and we would all just like eat and sit together. And it was like just that fraternity of like our dedication to this university, which I love. And we are Buffalo State University, just as a reminder for everyone. Okay, so I want to talk about you. So we talked about you as a leader at work. Talk to me a little bit about your volunteer work, what you're like as a dad, what you're like as a team member, because there's a lot of organizations that you support, because I think your leadership kind of travels throughout all of the different kind of hats that you wear.
Absolutely. So, I am a father of 6. We have a blended family.
Yay!
I've been married to my wife Annette now for 13 years.
Hi to her.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So she keeps the household strong in my absence. So I am a father first and foremost. A husband. I do a lot of volunteer work on the side. I sit on a lot of boards. So I am an assistant coach at Buff State for the women's basketball program.
Let's go.
Yeah, I coach 17 UAU girls basketball. I sit on a number of boards, but I mean, to me, community and the service is the price you pay for leadership, right? You have an obligation, if you're going to call yourself a leader, to serve your community. So I try to serve it in the best way that I can.
That's amazing. So I'm going to ask you like 3 questions that I usually ask everyone. Mm-hmm. What moment did you have or encounter, or can you reflect on when you were like, okay, I want to be a leader? Like, this is it. Like, because I feel like as a young person, like 7, 8, 9 years old, I was like, okay, everyone now listen to me. And they're like, what? So like, did you feel a sense of like leadership or wanting to lead as a child? Or was it something that you kind of grew into because other people noticed like you were effective?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of both, right? I think there was points when, in my younger days, when I was an athlete, I was a 3-4 sport athlete, and people kind of gravitated towards me. They listened to what I wanted to say, they followed me, and I realized that there was some type of leadership that was involved there. But it was, I believe, when I became in my teenage years and earlier on in my working career, to where I understood kind of the power that my words had, and I wanted to get involved, and I saw what good can come from people who were out here trying to do honest work, right, and really trying to build community. So, it was something that didn't come natural to me because, even to this day, I'm never comfortable being up front. I've always been the type of person that I'm in the background. I just want to get stuff.
Yeah, I'm always pushing you like, Peter, go. Tell them you're a leader. I'm so incredibly proud of you.
Thank you. Yeah, I've always just been more comfortable with just, I don't worry about accolades. I worry about results. I just want to get things done. I think, far too often we have people who proclaim themselves to be leaders in this community, in this world, that are more interested in accolades, right? Getting the newspaper clippings and the articles and all that, instead of actually getting stuff done for the community.
And newspaper clippings are important as a writer. You already know, Peter. As a columnist, they're super important. I actually would love the privilege to write about you. Right now, obviously, I write about Latina leaders. So I was going to ask you, my next question was, if you could think of a young leader that you would want to recognize regionally, that you're like, hey, I want to shout this several people out because they are diligently kind of embodying what you feel like the essence and the values of the Federation are. Do you have like any people that you'd want to shout out? Or you could come back to that question.
I mean, yeah, let me think about it.
Okay, all right. So the next question is, can you kind of give me an example of where you feel the future of the Federation should go, or like how people can get more actively involved if they're already part of it and listening to you now, they're like energized and want to commit to do more?
Yeah, so I believe that the future of the labor movement, not only here locally but nationally, is in reconnecting back to our original roots, right? Taking on the issues.
Let's go.
Taking on the issues that our members deal with, not only on our shop floors, but the issues that they deal with before and after work, right? Like, that's the reality. When we were the best as a labor movement is when we took on the issues that weren't necessarily covered by a collective bargaining agreement.
Absolutely.
Right? Like when we dealt with the issues of housing, affordable housing, of access to voting, food discrepancy. Like, those are the issues that we need to be taking on as labor movement, and I think that's the direction that we're moving on. And for one, am just ecstatic to see us get back to our agitational roots, right?
Yeah, and so that's a strong word. I love the idea of being a strong advocate, but like you said, so centering the union voice when stakeholders at the national level and at our community level, I feel like, are making any decisions. Like, I feel like if you're making a decision and you're looking around and there's not a union person in the room and they're for everybody, these decisions are for everybody, you might just want to check later or compose the room. I always say, right, add some folks. I always say that I think that I grew up and they told me, and I took pride in like being blue collar. And I think when I reflect on that as a writer and as a political scientist, I feel like that blue collar is like a union collar. And so much of like the feedback that we get about the changes in our city are that, they don't reflect the normal values in Buffalo, and they're not, accessible to some people who you would think, I think, would be within the class of people that we saw ourselves. What's your response to that? Because, there's a lot of strong feelings around new development.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. No, I think you hit it on the head, right? That when we're talking about changes in our city, in the Western New York region, right? We have to remember that the Western New York region has a union density that's double the national average.
Let's go. 23%. We need to put that on a shirt somewhere.
Yeah.
And I'm traveling, so I'm taking it with me. Like, get like us.
That's it. I mean,
get your card.
It's a union town, right? Like, this is the deal. So when there are changes to be made, like, we have to be at the table. Our members are not only union members, but they're community members, right? They're active in their PTAs, their block clubs.
They're volunteering, librarians, volunteer, just everybody.
Yes, they are out there, and their voice deserves to be heard, right? I mean, this is the origin of unions. This is what unions are all about. It's ensuring that voices are heard, and those who are already speaking and doing this good work, that we're amplifying that voice, right? So we absolutely need that seat at the table. And, it takes a village to build up a community and to build up, a city. And we need to honor that by bringing all those voices to the table, whether we agree with them or not.
Right. We don't all agree. That's cool. But they get their time, as my mom would say, their time to say their piece.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. We got to have those hard conversations, the real life conversations that sometimes are going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, and your dad is sick, so you're ready for those conversations.
Oh, listen, it happens daily in this household.
Because I can't say the interview time has already flown so fast, but I wanted to center around a couple things. One, I wanted to ask, how important are like the conferences, are supporting like the donuts, like get to know your union members? Like how important is it to now, because we have moved past and are still working through our public health crisis, to like show up, to like physically be there? And how important are those union conventions? Can you say a little bit about the work that's done in those places?
Yeah, those things are crucial, right? Because as a leader, you need to never stop learning. Right, like you've got to stay in tune with what's going on. You need to be around other like-minded individuals, those who have handled issues that you might be facing. It's crucial, right? And as a rank and file member, it is crucial to get involved in your union, because the union is just like a gym membership, right? You're only going to get out of it what you put into it. You know what I mean? So we need folks, because we need those voices at the table. We need to understand what's going on. We need to continue to develop, to never settle, right? So, at those conferences are crucial, right? So that you can hear what is going on, not only within your region, but across the country as well, right? That you can lend a voice to issues, So I value going to these type of conferences. Now, sometimes they're a little much, right? They take you, out of work for a while, or
oh, like time and stuff, and
yeah.
But I think okay, so one
family, man, it's time consuming,
right?
Like, time away from your family is time away. That's time lost. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, the work has to be done. So you have to show up in those spaces.
And I think that our children, speaking for my son too, like are overall in time going to recognize the value of what we're doing. So for me, I think it became pretty sobering. I was reading a report, I think it came from Stanford or like one of the Ivies, about media. And it was like, I think 900,000 articles that they had analyzed. And I think like only 13% or less than 20% actually even mentioned Latinos. And I thought about how my son is out in the community, and I'm like, look at mommy. And I open the paper, and like when I think about writing and contributing to independent media, which I think kind of is part of the union culture, right? Because like there's nothing like a good union newsletter. Stop playing. And obviously the magazines, right, that like they impacted me, like they made me feel like I was part of a family, like something bigger, at a time when, it was tough to be a Latino kid. And it was important for me to find an identity. So I think that when I look at independent media and the space that we have here at SUNY Buffalo State, I just want to say how lucky I am. I want to thank the producer for giving his time, and just say it's incredible to have Black and brown media. So can you just say in closing, that's my second last question, but like how important is Black and brown media or independent owned media in supporting union efforts and moving forward this joint conversation that we need to have in and out of work?
Absolutely. It is critical, because representation matters. Right. If we are going to have the issues of the Black and brown community represented in media, then we need writers like yourself telling those stories.
Oh, thanks.
Right. We need writers like yourself who have lived that story. Again, we've got to have a seat at the table. I think the beauty of this whole social media movement and the multitude of platforms that we have now, is that there's opportunities for people to tell those stories. Right, like activist media is real.
It's lit.
To be told.
It's wild lit. Get like us.
Listen, we have to. Right. I mean, the reality is we have stories to tell. We have contributions to make to this country and to the society.
And it's uniting, I think. Seeing Latino specific platforms, or like I follow some unions like across the country, just like random unions. I just like follow the chapter because I think it's awesome. Like just to support and see all that they're doing. So, okay, last two questions. One, do you have a question for me? And then the last question is like, where do you see the future of your personal leadership? Like what is next for you in terms of service?
Yeah. So, question for you: how does it feel to step out there to make sure that these voices are being heard? I love the work that you're doing, represent the Latinas and making sure that they're getting their time in the spotlight. So, how does it feel to be a writer and to be kind of an entrepreneur and making sure that these voices in the community are being spotlighted?
I think for me, like it's really made me tap into my privilege, because like when I have to tell someone else's story, I have to talk sometimes about pain or about things that I haven't physically encountered, but I have to be able to channel that emotion. And sometimes I feel like it's a huge privilege, but also a responsibility, because some of my Latina sisters, like, there's a lot of work that needs to be done in their quality of life, and they're giving so much to America physically, right? Like physically giving so much. So it's a privilege, I think. And very much like you know, I try to speak for all different types of Latinas. The column that I have in April is about Chanel J. Lopez, and she's Dominican and a trans Afro-Latina. And like, I just want to lift up all voices, right? And just make sure that there's space so we can recognize each other's achievements. So how about you? What's next? You're representing 140,000 people. You're leading a movement, or, you know, supporting the energy around a movement, because you already know, like, we have a pop-in union culture here. What's next for you? Like, what do you think would be a next best step? Or like...
So, I mean, just listen, next for me is to continue to fight, right? To continue to build an inclusive and equitable Western New York, to continue to reconnect this labor movement that I love, that has given me and my family so much, back to its original roots, right, to its community roots, and to make sure that, you know, we continue to build power, worker power, whether it's union or non-union, right? I want to uplift those voices.
Okay, last question. If there's like a young Latino student or a young student that wants to be part of a union or wants to know like how to be a good leader, what would you tell them? And that's my last question. For today.
Get at me. Visit our website at wnyalf.org. Reach out to us. Our contact information is out there. If you are interested in getting involved in your union, or if you're interested in forming your union, step up, let your voice be heard. Take that first step. We'll be there to guide you the rest of the way, and we'll stand by you until you have your seat at the table and that your voice is heard.
Peter, that was amazing. Thank you so much for your time. Before we close, I just want to recognize Sam, who's working actively, and also Angela Blue, who as a young person taught me a lot about unions and the power.
Ms. Blue.
You already know the vibes. Peter, thank you so much for your time.
No worries. I appreciate y'all. Keep doing what y'all doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Time for the dope. Time for the dope.
So focused on what I should do instead of who I need to be.